What I discovered was that there were two types of experts on YouTube or in social media in general that I could learn from. Those who were actual experts who lost me within the first 15 to 20 seconds. I'm Googling every word they say, just to try to keep up and get a definition. And then there was another, who spent roughly the same amount of money that I've spent, here at home, just because they want a camera there and a mic here. And they really don't know what they're talking about. That's the incredibly dangerous one, because that for whatever amount of money they spent, they have what looks like a nice studio. Well, that must mean that they're an expert. But at the conclusion of the American Civil War, 2/3 of our nation's currency was counterfeit. And so Congress said, this is a problem, we need to figure this out. Well, the other problem was that the currency was not created by the Treasury Department or the Federal Reserve. It was created by the banks. The company that we were at was Apple, and I didn't know that the guy that walked by was Steve Jobs. I had no idea who that was at the time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Life Edge. Today I want to introduce our guest, Yergz. He's the creator of Doggy Traders. So, Yergz, why don't you take a brief moment and just share with the listeners what it is that Doggy Traders is and what you offer?
Chris, thanks for having me. Yeah, so we are an educational platform. We're not your broker yet, although I just came from a meeting with Edward Jones earlier today where we're talking about that very issue. We are an educational platform that I started 2 years ago when I began the process to begin retiring out of the then full-time job being a special agent with the Secret Service. I realized my retirement was not where it was at or where it should have been. And so I said, well, I've got to do something to supplement that, not only now for the retirement, but also supplemental income so I can continue a decent way of life while living on a pension. And so I began learning day trading. Day trading turned out to be very profitable for me. It's also, there's risk to it, obviously, but I think people that are the naysayers to day trading are the ones who, didn't really do their homework and expected to get rich quick. I'm not expecting that. I'm not looking forward to that. I'm not trying to do that. I'm trying to just develop another source of reliable, progressive income. And what I discovered was that there were two types of experts on YouTube or in social media in general that I could learn from. Those who were actual experts who lost me within the first 15 to 20 seconds. I'm Googling every word they say, just to try to keep up and get a definition. And then there was another, who spent roughly the same amount of money that I've spent, here at home, just because they want a camera there and a mic here. And they really don't know what they're talking about. That's the incredibly dangerous one, because that for whatever amount of money they spent, they have what looks like a nice studio. Well, that must mean that they're an expert. Just because I have a Tampa Bay Lightning flag hanging behind me doesn't mean I play for the Tampa Bay Lightning. And unfortunately, that's, a lot of people don't realize that. So I started the Doggy Traders because I've got 2 Italian Mastiffs sleeping in the next room, a huge dog guy. And, now I do the tight T-shirts for like, Sea-Doo or Yamaha or jet ski, basically, is my other hobby. And that's my shtick. I've got a ponytail. No Secret Service agent that's a male has a ponytail. Well, that's why I'm not with them anymore. I retired, 12 months and 12 inches ago. But yeah, so I am a newbie at trading. I admit that. I own that. But my expertise is research. 21 years in the Secret Service, investigating criminal, financial crimes. A history and political science degree from Penn State University. So historians don't know information, they know where to find it. Same thing with political scientists, same thing with criminal investigators. So as an educator in day trading and crypto investing, I may not be an expert, and I'm okay with that. And I don't mind a viewer or listener saying, hey, you're wrong about this, redo it. And I'm like, well, here's where I found it. What else do you got? And that really begins a conversation where everybody learns, and me included, and I'm perfectly okay with that.
Your background, Secret Service, but you said you specialize in finance, so how easy was that transition from Secret Service into the financial world of day trading?
pretty easy because while we don't investigate day trading at the Secret Service, we investigate bank fraud, identity theft. There's a sound knowledge of the banking industry, which helped me to transfer that into. Cryptocurrencies are no different than fiat currencies. It's just who's backing it and who's behind it. It's like you're in the American League or the National League. So there's a lot of similarities that allowed me to really pick up quickly. I did one of my videos is the successes that I had in my first year trading. I paid for 2 life-saving surgeries for one each of my dogs. I have 30% of this house. I have 2 jet skis that total and a trailer that total about $50,000 worth of an investment. My son is to my right here. I homeschool him, so I pay for all that. He's gaming right now. I paid for his adoption, my investigation into my background to be able to adopt him, and a list of other things that I would not have been able to do without the day trading. So there was some success, and as a result, there was some immediate knowledge that I already had. I get that you, your listeners, your viewers, my new viewers, don't have that, and that's okay. That's why I'm here, to be able to take what I've learned and transitioned into and be able to give it to everybody else without making the mistakes that I've made.
So to backtrack a little bit more, can you just give... I didn't realize can you give a little bit of information about the Secret Service? I didn't realize that
Sure.
it covered such a broad spectrum as far as doing financial investigations.
Yeah, so we're not just the bodyguards for the president.
Yeah.
And that's what you see on CNN and Fox and anywhere else on TV. We were started in 1865. The July actually was our actual founding, but the creation really happened in April of 1865. The irony is the last thing that he did before leaving the White House for Ford's Theater was signing the bill that created the Secret Service, and that's, of course, Abraham Lincoln. He created the agency that he would have needed later that night. If we did the protection right away, it would take 2 more presidents to be assassinated before somebody said, well, maybe these guys need some sort of security. But at the conclusion of the American Civil War, 2/3 of our nation's currency was counterfeit. And so Congress said, this is a problem. We need to figure this out. Well, the other problem was that the currency was not created by the Treasury Department or the Federal Reserve. It was created by the banks. And that was the beginning of the end of that system. There needed to be a centralization, not only of the currency, but of the creation of the currency so that detection of counterfeit could be more readily identifiable and available. So we were always in the financial crimes. Now, with the occurrence of September 11th and the creation of the Department of Homeland Security, we were transferred over into that. And in all actuality, kind of sort of the way I see it, because of how a nation's security can focus around their financial stability, we were really always a part of Homeland Security. It's just that, because of the money aspect of it, we were in Treasury. Now we're in Homeland Security because so much of it is not just financial, but electronic. With debit cards and credit cards and ATM machines. I had a place temporarily in my time in Los Angeles a few years ago. And it was just renting a room because it was temporary. The landlord wanted to pay in cash. I said, okay, I get it. You're trying to just survive, yada, yada, whatever. I went to the ATM machine to get cash out of the ATM to pay my first month's rent, and I didn't know what to do. I forgot how to use an ATM machine because nobody uses cash anymore. Point being, so much of our transfers or transactions are electronic that it's moved into, we now investigate, I say we, the Secret Service now investigates identity theft as well, because not just the similarities and the connection to the money, but also, more importantly, the similarities and the connection to the network and the system that all of that information, financial, personal, identifiers, all of that information rests on. So much so that now we investigate the intrusions of the network itself. Hacking into your system, that'll go to the Secret Service.
All right.
It's a broad spectrum. If we're as acute as like we don't do bank robbery, that's the FBI. We don't do other organized crimes, that's the FBI. We don't do terrorism without a nexus to the threat to the president or the vice president, or some of what we do legislatively. It's still a very broad spectrum of what we do, especially for the size of the agency. The Secret Service has roughly 6,000 to 7,000 employees. There are more FBI agents in Washington, D.C. than there are Secret Service agents in the world, in the entire Secret Service. And so we've got a lot on our plate all the time. And it's more than just catching bullets.
How does one end up in the Secret Service?
I was in 8th grade, and it was the summer between 8th and 9th grade when I went. I'm originally from Pennsylvania, and I went to a summer camp called Camp Cadet. It was like a week-long police academy for kids. And there were, state police, local police, military police, other federal agencies, everybody holding, their class on, what we do, what each of those agencies does. And it was cool. I enjoyed, the different instruction. But when the Secret Service came in, they showed us counterfeit currency, counterfeit credit cards. Some looked very real. Others you wouldn't use to play Monopoly. It was that poor quality. But then they took one of the instructors, one of the state troopers, they stood him at a podium, like he was the president giving a speech, and they gave a water pistol to another state trooper and put that person in the crowd with us. And when the state trooper in the crowd drew the water pistol, the other agents yelled "gun" and reacted, according to where that person was. They have, really can't get specific, but they have different responsibilities depending on what happens. Well, as you might be able to figure out, the actual podium used by the Secret Service for the president is actually itself bulletproof. The podium is actually armor. The decorative boards that you see at the bottom of it are actually steel, and they're just draped with a curtain to be made pretty. So one of the first things we do is we put the president down, or any protectee, down behind that armored position, and then reevaluate from there. I saw that, and I said, that's what I want to do. If you remember the line or the scene from the movie In the Line of Fire with Dylan McDermott and Clint Eastwood, they're both sitting at a bar. The pretty popular boat scene where they're both undercover just happened, and Dylan McDermott's all sweaty and nervous, and he said, because he didn't want to do the criminal stuff. He said, I joined the Secret Service because I wanted to protect people. And Clint Eastwood's sitting there playing the piano and says, the idea of throwing yourself in front of a gun, hoping like hell the bullet hits you instead of the person you're protecting. He goes, you find that appealing? Every time I see that scene, I smile and say yes. Because what we do is very different than what the normal person would do. You and I were in a class 2 weeks ago, and that was virtual, but if we were all in the same room, and with all the friends that we made in that class, if somebody drew a gun, I promise you would forget about those friendships and do what you had to do to get out the door. And we do just the opposite of what's normal. And that's kind of, it really transitioned into so many other things in my life. Not just Secret Service, but trading. My original Edward Jones advisor tried to talk me out of it after I already made a boatload of money in my first year. The new one is supportive, has other traders in his portfolio of clients. Trading might not be what everybody else does to supplement income or to grow wealth, but that doesn't make it a bad thing. Putting yourself in harm's way might not be what everybody else does, but that doesn't make it doesn't make you an automatic hero. It just doesn't make it a bad thing by doing something different. And that's how what we teach at the Doggy Traders is that I'm not here to make you rich quick. I'm here to teach you a lifestyle. Maybe introduce it as a hobby. or to whatever level you want. And that's why I don't say, I'm going to make you a millionaire. I might not. But what we will do is teach so that you can develop your own definition of financial freedom or financial independence or whatever words you want to use to describe it, to help define it. And that's all I'm looking for. One of the coaches I'm working with on their strategy said, you'll make 7 digits in the first 45 to 90 days. I said, no, I won't. Because before the account gets that high, I'm going to pay off the house. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to start over, and I'm going to buy the boat that's going to be anchored right outside that door on the canal. And then we'll worry about making 7 digits. Well, by that time, I'll already have that in equity, probably, but not in that account. Eventually, we'll get to that. But if we don't, if I just keep taking it out and partying for the rest of my life, as long as I'm soundly putting it back by trading responsibly, totally okay with that. House is paid off, pensions coming in to support everything else, life is good. And then what we teach for our students, is what do you want? And then we help them develop the strategy that realistically gets them there. This just doesn't happen overnight. It's that simple.
Yeah.
And that was my skepticism in getting into that one strategy with the whole 45 to 90 day thing, was that sounds like just the same snake oil everybody else seems to be selling. But I saw his students. I saw him. We were on a 2-hour call yesterday where he taught us, how to use his strategy and the software that goes with it. And, he did it from one of his 3 vacation homes. So he's doing all right.
Yeah. So I know I watched some of your videos, some of your content. You're also looking to not only offer the information that you have and the research that you bring to the table, you're also looking to bring on other people who have already achieved success and be able to let them help coach other people. So can you break that down or explain a little bit more of the long-term plans with Doggy Traders? So
Doggy Traders really basically does three divisions of videos. One is quasi-daily market analysis. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday we do a live show. Not sure. We say 11 p.m. Central European time because that's the farthest east. For now, we're actually bringing on the Asian markets. But 11 p.m. Central European time, and then 5 p.m. That translates to 5 p.m. here in the East Coast, if that for the rest of the Americans watching, and of course 2 p.m. Pacific. Every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we do about a half-hour show where we do market analysis, some top stories from crypto and Forex, and then we do the prices. Here's what the majors in the Forex market are doing, here's what the majors in the cryptos are doing, and here's the indices, which is actually the plural word for index. NASDAQ, S&P 500, et cetera. And there's 2, I forget the other one, but indices is what I use. There's, or indices, depending on where you put the accent. But the plural, the indexes is another technically legit term. We just go over the prices where they are at the close for the Eastern New York market, and that's the show. Then there's educational. As you learned, 2 weeks ago, simple question, ask a simple question, or teach a specific skill. We've broken that down into multiple questions where the video, it's as long as it needs to be, but as short as possible. That was the other thing. Our first one that we're doing was what is day trading? And that's the one I'm editing right now to launch this week. And then it's just going to build from there. And then third is inspirational. I forget exactly what it is, but Sean Kennel from Think Media, I took one of the quotes he gave, and he's going to be added to my list of celebrities. I have a screensaver file of a bunch of celebrities that have not only said a particular quote that they're known for, that I found that they've said or whatever, but that has also influenced me in my life, whether it's trading or life in general. So we'll do a video on that where we show the celebrity, show their quote, and then I tell the story about how that influenced me and how it affected my life and how I moved on from it. one particular one, I was at a tech company back in my years in San Francisco. So, of course, it's very close to the Silicon Valley.
Yep.
And we have a foreign dignitary, some foreign head of state or head of country that was, or head of government, rather, head of state or head of government, that was visiting that campus. And I had to make a change to itinerary and certain aspects of it for security reasons. And nobody liked it. And I just had to play the security card. I'm like, well, here, look, we're outside. Right over there is somebody else's campus. We got no, it's gun range. We got to do this differently, and we will. End of story. And it pissed everybody off. And this guy walks by, and he heard the whole thing. And I said, look, we got to do it. This is the direction we have to go. And he said, he interjected, and he said, if you want to be a leader, don't try to make anyone, if you want to make everyone happy, don't be a leader. Sell ice cream. The company that we were at was Apple, and I didn't know that the guy that walked by was Steve Jobs. I had no idea who that was at the time. So I'm looking at him like, okay, dude, thanks. He walks away, and everybody's like, oh, that was, who? What? They're like, that's the founder and the owner of the company. And I guess this was actually after he got fired and came back, but was at that point still the CEO again. And that was the CEO of the company, and that was my first. And I think it was like right before he became popular for doing the on-camera reveals of here's our next products and things. So it was a little less celebrity on a nationwide or international scale. But that's one of them. That's going to be one of the first stories I tell. And that's just, it's if you want to be a leader, or if you're going to be a leader and you want to make people happy, you got to make a decision. Do you want to make people happy, or you're just going to take the leadership role? And sometimes when the kid and I have to have a talk, we go down the street to an ice cream shop, and I buy him ice cream, but then I become a leader after that. So the three with those three, probably the biggest one is the one that we're going to be able to monetize, and that, of course, is the educational. The introductory videos, like I said, it's going to be about 12 minutes because I've screwed up some of the tape, and I put the outtakes at the end of it, just so everybody gets a chance to laugh at me a little bit. But then it's also going to develop into like a Patreon account and one-on-one sessions that we're basically going to monetize a more in-depth look at what is day trading. And then same thing with other simple questions. What is crypto? What is Forex? What is top-down analysis? It's all very basic and a way for you, the new day trader, to say, okay, well, yes, the Doggy Traders is or is not for me. Day trading and investing is or is not for me. And it just helps you to decide how much further you want to go into it. And then our website will provide different levels and different payment plans and so on. As far as bringing on other people, I can't do that myself, obviously. I don't know it all, and I admit that up front. I'm another quote I have actually is about great leaders. They're not the ones that do everything. They're the ones that bring the best people onto the team and achieve the end result that's needed. And that's where in fact, that's actually part of the movie Steve Jobs. There's a scene where he and Steve Wozniak are having a conversation, played for by the guy from Pineapple Express, Seth Rogen.
Yep.
Does that sound right? Yeah. Steve Wozniak is played by Seth Rogen, and he goes off on Steve Jobs saying, this guy was in charge of that, this guy developed that, I did this. What do you do? And it was right before one of the reveals that was actually held at the same facility as the San Francisco Opera. And they're in the orchestra pit. And he stands in the conductor spot and he says, I play the orchestra. You're the best violinist. You sit right there in that first chair. But I stand here. And that's really what I'll be planning ultimately doing, to a point where, look at Steve. He started Think Media or I'm sorry, Sean.
Sean
Started Think Media from working with his church and having somewhat of a tech background, but he doesn't do all those videos. There's Omar, there's Heather, there's Mel, there's Caleb. There's so many different. Yeah, there's so many different people now. Each, as we say at the Secret Service, we all bring different things to the table. Nobody's necessarily an expert in everything, and that's okay. And that's what I'm looking for now. So yeah, a little hiring plug, I suppose, is to bring other, not just industry experts, but also like-minded. I don't want to. There's so many of the other educators out there fill their Instagram with photos of them in a private jet,
or their Ferrari, or their giant house,
their courtside seats at the Lakers. That's an actual example, and that's great. I know that trader. I know that educator. He used to be on one of the platforms I'm still a member of. And that's also stuff. I watched him place 2 trades, and at the end of the 20-minute trade, he closed with $1 million in profit each. But that's not everybody. Mm-hmm. And I think that's one of the stigmas and the misconceptions is that they think they give you this impression that you'll be making trades like that tomorrow. And no, my first trade was in January of 2021. I first started training. I first started the whole self-education process in August of 2020. Mm-hmm. I didn't even, and I was paying almost $300 a month for a membership to one of the educational websites that I still use today. And I sat on that for 6 months before I even placed a single trade, just to make sure that the platform, that particular company was the real deal. Mm-hmm. And also that, is this something that is really or is not for me? And when I decided, yes, it is, I said, okay, here's where we got to go. But I think for that, to bring on those other educators, they need to be of at least a similar mindset, in that they're not going to make empty promises. Oh, you'll be, trading in a week and making millions of dollars. There is a system of progression, of checks and balances and steps to take. It's a recipe. Gordon Ramsay just doesn't throw a bunch of stuff into a pot and thinks that's a gourmet dinner. There's portions, there's a process, there's steps, there's things you do now, there's things you don't do now, and so on. And so that's what we'll teach, is to make this a lifestyle. I mean, there's I think it's in the next room, so it doesn't go off during our call. But I made most of my trades in my first year from my phone. I'm teaching Zach to use this monitor that's here on the wall and the laptop that's in front of me now, and there's 2 monitors that are attached to that. I've got 4 screens I can look at, and that's how especially as a beginner. That's the best way to be able to see all the different things and components that go into placing a healthy trade. If you're just saying, no, all you got to do is trade from your phone and you're gonna win, you'll be successful. No, that's not what a new trader needs to learn. There's too much involved. And I'm not going to take my students and put them in jeopardy. Number one, my parents have a neighbor, or actually don't have a neighbor anymore, but the people that first lived in the house across the street from them, the guy was a day trader, back before you were doing that from your phone. And they lost everything, because they didn't have the right plan, they didn't have the right risk management, and they had the wrong intentions and dreams. And they're not in that house anymore. That's not going to happen to my students, because we're going to have the right people guiding them. So that's long answer to your question. Yes, we are hiring, and there'll be a process to determine those people as well.
One more kind of question about the Doggy Traders specifically is, are you specializing mostly in like U.S. equities, Forex, currencies, commodities, options? What type of trading can people come to you to learn? Swing trading, day trading.
Yeah, so that's 3 different styles: is the scalping, day trading, and swing trading. It's just basically based on the amount of time that you're in the trade for. Mm-hmm. The scalping, the strategy that two strategies we're using right now. If you're in for 90 seconds, it's time to evaluate. Is it still going? Can you continue with it, or do you need to cut losses? Day trading, you place it in the morning, you close it by the end of the day. Swing trading, it goes for 2 days. I've been in trades for as long as 2 weeks. And I think the biggest thing is to realize what fits you, fits your lifestyle, fits your comfort level. I used to be the guy that wakes up in the middle of the night to check the status of some trades I got. And, oh, wow, I got a $2,000 profit in Bitcoin right now. Well, it's still going up. I'll let it go, or I'll take it and close it out or whatever. But I'm at 50. I just turned 51, last week. I'm realizing that I like getting a good night's sleep. And I'm also realizing that and again, this is for me, that if I can be done by 10 o'clock and have what used to be a week's salary done by lunchtime, why would you not want that?
Yeah.
Why do you want to be waking up in the middle of the night, for something else? But we teach how to deal with all three, and just, again, let the student learn what is best for them, which of the three or all of the three. If that's something you're diversifying with, then let them pick that. As far as the different things to trade, we're adding to that. Right now it's Forex, commodities, the indices, and the cryptos is the biggest. I've been in stocks. I got bored silly from them. And I think that you also have to, am I saying we'll never, branch out into that, as the Doggy Traders brand? No, it's quite a big possibility. But, while I was learning crypto, I also bought, nothing against these companies, but, just as I bought Pfizer, I bought Zoom, I bought Airbnb. And, I think Airbnb right before they went public, Pfizer right before they got okayed for the COVID vaccine, expecting them to skyrocket after, and realized, learned the hard way that skyrocketing, that going to the moon, as we call it, happened when they said, hey, we're going public, or hey, we got a vaccine that we're almost ready with. Then it already went up, and I was very much late to the game. So it just wasn't for me personally anymore. When I broke even at least, or made some profit, I got out and put it all into crypto and really never looked back. With what happens with crypto, I on signing, on closing, I already owned a third of this house. Paid the jet skis. I think we talked about that. Paid off the jet skis. Paid for surgery for each of my dogs. Paid for the adoption. All kinds of really nice successes, and really haven't as aggressively traded over the past year because I didn't have to. That's the kind of thing we want to be able to teach. Mistakes I made with that, I would have liked to got back into a more active trading schedule a little sooner. Again, something that when it comes to lifestyle coaching for the trading, will help each student evaluate, when can you take that break? When you're mentally ready to come back, how do you do it and not keep pushing it off like I did? And that's why I'm happy to be making the mistakes that I made, because my students ain't going to make it. The notes have been taken, the journal, the diary has been written in, and we're ready to put that curriculum together. We're putting that curriculum together, and soon ready to start filming the rest of it.
I got a few more questions I want to ask you. I kind of want to shift gears. You've mentioned the adoption a couple times now in the conversation, and your son's name is Zach, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Yeah, and so Zach, well, why don't you tell us about the adoption, how that's even came about, and what that process looks like? Because that's just not something I'm very familiar with as well.
No, gladly. I'm single. I'm gay. So, there's that. I'm not having a kid of my own without somebody's help. I was there for that day of health class. But also my own parents' influence. They're 20 years older than I am. So they're in their early 70s. But more importantly, through my youth, having dad as my baseball coach, having mom as the team mom, being able to, play volleyball, football, or baseball with them in the backyard, sledding, teaching me to ride a bike. And I've had plenty of kid friends that whose parents were considerably older, and as a result, not able to do that, and had to rely on older brothers or older siblings to help them with that. And when they were, the age of the parents and had their own kids, or the interest of getting their own kids, they weren't as interested in helping out their younger brother or sister. So I wanted to have a child that was closer in age to me. Zach and I are not as close in age as my parents and I are, but still, we can easily relate to it. There's things we're constantly just together giggling about constantly that I don't think I would be able to do with a 3 or 4 year old or younger. The other thing is with adoption, older teenage children are harder to place, because if a young couple who medically can't have their own kids wants to have a child that's only known them as their parents, well, then obviously they need to start with a much younger child.
Yeah.
And so the attraction to teenagers is considerably less. And in fact, the older a teen in foster care gets, the less likely they are to be placed. Zach and I met this past summer, and he was already 17. So Sunday he'll age out of the program. In fact, we're actually not finished with the program yet, so he will technically be my foster son still, even though he's a legal adult. But the other thing was, when I decided that adoption was going to be the more likely route than a birth child, I kind of saw this as my way of staying in touch with the law enforcement community, because now I'm getting him out of one system and keeping him out of another. He's getting out of the foster care system and staying out of the criminal justice system, and it's kind of like me doing my part to consider to help the community. You don't get put into foster care because you came from a good home. Yeah. There was some, and there's different degrees. In fact, we just had lunch with his mom 2 weeks ago for her birthday, with his birth mom, biological mom. And, we feel that, with the changes she's made to her life, it's healthy for all of us to stay in contact and as, part of some sort of extended family. We know some of his biological siblings. We'll see one at a birthday party soon. It's giving him a fresh start. And the chance that he never had, like, when he was living with me for the past summer, before we decided to homeschool, he would be up till 2, 3 in the morning, with his video games. And I was okay with that, because he's been forced into being an adult at a very young age. And, having helped take care of other siblings and so on, and himself. Yeah. So this was a way of at least repaying him some sort of childhood that was kind of robbed from him just by life.
Yeah.
And his maturity that he's also had already developed. He now plays video games till like 12:30, 1 o'clock, and he closes up and goes to bed because, it's time for bed. We go for a walk or a run first thing in the morning when we get up. I had not taken mine yet. And I think I was doing something either for this or for Edward Jones, or maybe we just had the dogs outside. I don't remember. But I came back in, and he was gone. I didn't have to tell him to go for his walk or for his run. He actually went, kind of mixed it up a little. And we do that before we eat, before we do anything else. So, it kind of charges us up after having not had anything to eat all night, and, gets us the good solid breakfast. And then we kind of start our day. I came in, he was gone. I didn't have to tell him to do that. So he's appreciative, and we're developing a family. I know his girlfriend really well, and she's a part of it, and we plan weekends for him to go visit and spend the day, and then we play tag team of who has to drive further to bring him home, and that's his next step, is to get the car. That's where we're going this afternoon to start that shopping we talked about.
Yeah.
But yeah,
That's awesome.
It's been a process. I can see why some people decide not to, because the process itself is working with government, and as a result, it's kind of drawn out and a lot of red tape and other people just wanting to check boxes and not really wanting to help. That's why he's homeschooled and why that took so long. The local schools, I'm not really impressed with. I think the immediate local school is under construction, so he's would be bused to another location that they're using to bring in a bunch of other students from other schools that are under construction. So it's one big school with people from other side of the tracks.
Yeah.
And I'm told that particular location is an NHL hockey game every day, with fights just breaking out for good measure. I don't want that to be his senior year. So we decided to homeschool him. He's got like a 95% average right now between the fitness, the math, and the economics. His math class is day trading. His economics class is done by Dave Ramsey. So it's stuff that's also not only can he manage and learn from, but also use for the rest of his life. His high school guidance counselor, when I was on the phone with her, wanted him to take calculus. And I said, why? So what is he going to use calculus? He's not going to be a rocket scientist. He's not going to be an engineer. He's not going to do anything that he's going to actually use calculus. Just like me, he's not going to see calculus since the day he left it. Just like I haven't left it since I dropped out of it my senior year of high school. I got one more period of student teaching at the junior high and learned that I didn't want to be a high school teacher. So win-win. And his courses this spring are also similar. Business communication, how to behave and operate and move about through your own social media accounts, U.S. history and government, especially with today being election day, and everything that's happening on either side of the political spectrum. You need to have a basic knowledge of that, so that when you vote or when you take part in a conversation in a bar or whatever, you're no idiot. And you have some sort of foundation to take part in that conversation.
I'm on this homeschool push right now. Our brand really matches a lot with homeschool because of what we offer and what we're doing. And like you said, I haven't used calculus since the day I left the class. And I've been very heavily involved in the financial markets, as have you, and in things that require a whole lot of math. But nothing has ever exceeded basic math. There's never been a point where I have to go find some mathematician to help me solve any kind of major problem in life. And that was work when I worked 10 years at a manufacturing company, was handling all that. Even working hand in hand with engineers, there was just rarely an occasion where I needed so much of the advanced required courses, so-called, that were taught.
Right.
And just hearing,
I can see things like algebra and geometry that will lead you into different life situations. For example, like I said before, right outside that door is my backyard, and on the other side of that is a canal. I've got a street in the front and a canal in the back, and that canal empties out into the Gulf of Mexico. One of the projects I've got going on is to build a boat lift and dock onto the seawall that's there already. And I'm trying to calculate what is the biggest size boat that I can handle. So what came into play was not only algebra, but the Pythagorean theorem. Mm-hmm. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. All of the boat lifts are on an angle to the seawall. And that's so that you can pull them in and back them out and spin them around and go whatever direction you're going to go. But you only have so much of the canal that is yours. So it's from wall to wall, it's 78 feet. You have the third that is up against your canal, so that's 26 feet. So if I go 26 feet straight out from the seawall, that's the lane of the canal that's mine.
Yep.
But with the end to end is 60 feet. That doesn't mean that my boat can be 60 feet. Because if you turn that on that whatever degree, to match the angle at which your lift is going to be at, you're going to extend out over the 26-foot, base of your triangle. So 26 times 26 plus 60 times 60 equals something times itself. And to reverse that told me, how long the maximum was I could have for a boat to not be sticking out into that center section that is the lane of travel back and forth on the canal itself, that all my neighbors are sharing with me. And so beyond that, the other thing we do in trading is figuring out things like with risk management and placing a trade, something called a lot size. That can get into algebra. But after that, I'm not, if I need to know what the distance is around the poles for, the, that I'm driving into to hold the boat lift, you go to the boatyard and you measure, around. You don't need a circumference. You don't need to know that pi is 22 over 7 or 3.14. You just go and say, what's the diameter of the pole I'm going to use?
Yeah.
You ask the engineer that. The people who need calculus and geometry and the higher trigonometries. And I understand, a school district that's not educating your child, they're educating children. They need to create that curriculum that is for everybody. But too many times they didn't offer the flexibility for somebody like Zach, who's a brilliant kid. It's just like his dad. And there's plenty of times where we kind of giggle and wonder, where was I 19 years ago? Neither of us are really mathematically inclined. There's other, spatial type things where we excel at, other levels of creativity, mental organization. Like I say, he's a brilliant kid, with he also not being all that mathematical, he picks up the day trading so much faster than I do. And sometimes I think he's just sitting there going, yeah, oh yeah, right. To be a smart ass, because, I want him to learn day trading. And then we get talking about it, and I see he's like, wow, he really understands this solidly. And I'm just so excited. I keep telling people he's going to be the only kid to graduate this coming spring that's making six figures. And my coach, the one that said the 45 to 90 day thing, said, yeah, that's okay. My kids will be retired. Great.
See, to me, but that's the great part about homeschooling is it offers opportunity to jumpstart children's future and really send them into the world prepared. When I left high school and even coming from college, I was prepared, but that's because I had worked my way through, even through high school. I was already in the job market, but there were so many people that once we graduated that were just still so lost. They had made it through all 12 years of the standard system and came out and didn't know what to do next. Right. And you're setting Zach up for just that opportunity where there isn't that transition of him having to figure it out. He's already moving, he's already shaking, he's already doing what needs to be done to really succeed in life. And
we had a little knockdown drag out recently. He wants to get a job, and the only reason he wanted to get a job earlier is for the money. Mm-hmm. And I had a job like that when I first moved here. I got a dishwashing job at one of my favorite restaurants. One, to kind of, pass some of the time. And two, because one of the entrepreneurial ventures I was considering was hotel and restaurant management. I had been considering that for a while, actually. And if you go to the other website, yergergroup.com, the parent company, it's more, that site right now is more geared towards our hospitality possibilities. But Zach was like, I just want some money, and now he's was smart enough to transition it into make it more appealing to me, the social interaction, with other people, and the sense of developing responsibility. And when he added all that to it, it was really hard for me to say no. to a point where I had changed my mind, and now we're actively looking for jobs that he would not just enjoy, but have an interest in. Mm. Like I had a dishwashing job because I wanted to get into restaurant management. It kind of sort of taught me how a kitchen runs. But honestly, after 3 weeks, when I got COVID and the boss wanted me to hurry back, I said, yeah, this isn't going to happen. I'm going to come back when I'm ready, by which point you're going to have that position filled with somebody else that's got COVID. And I'm probably not going to come back to your restaurant until COVID really blows over. And I left because I learned about what I'm going to learn from washing dishes about a kitchen.
Yeah.
And I also had my time back. I was able to, start learning more about, go back to the self-educating of day trading and investing and so on, as opposed to, it was supposed to be 2 to 3 days a week. It was 4, and they were 8-9 hour shifts. It was a full-time job, and I wasn't making enough to have a car payment. Mm. So I'm like, no. Where what he's looking for now and correlating into the homeschooling, one, we can do the classes tonight. We got tied up with election day, my Edward Jones appointment, and some of the other things that the anticipated test for the Ramsey Solutions that was supposed to be today is either going to be tonight or tomorrow, because I wasn't going to rush him through a chapter test so I could get to Edward Jones on time.
Yeah. And
that's the flexibility that you've got. Okay, so you don't have other classmates that you're not related to, but, we're going to the gym this afternoon. And the high school weightlifting team will be there then, and he's going to talk to those kids then. Mm-hmm. And we're, starting to know other people throughout our community through other things, that it doesn't have to be just school. So, yeah, I agree. I like that homeschooling's allowed us to have not just the flexibility in the schedule, but also the flexibility and the control over the curriculum.
Yeah.
And that it was geared. I know that a lot of people in homeschooling are also, I'm a person of faith, and we have religion, but that's not the reason why we're in homeschooling. I know that is the reason for a lot. Fine. If you're going to take the responsibility, this is a job. I'm a principal and a teacher.
Yeah.
But I'm okay with that. I've accepted that, and I'm managing that, and I'm sacrificing, because of it. I'm thankful that he's into working out, because now I still get to go to the gym. But if he was less inclined to do so, I'd have to make, a lot more sacrifices with that than what I do. But, there hasn't been as much, self-educating on my own trading or working on the YouTube channel, because, I've taken the responsibility to teach my son. But I see we're just over halfway in semester 1 and the fall semester, and I see what he's doing already.
Yeah.
100% this was the right decision. Our biggest concern was he going to be able to get into college? I recently, got a membership with the homeschool. I got to go through the acronyms to get this right. The Homeschool Legal Defense Association. It's a national nonprofit up in D.C. And I asked the one counselor that, I said, what is it like, giving a college a transcript from literally the Ross Yerger High School. I am his high school. I am his principal, and I am the school board. And she said, all 3 of my kids were homeschooled since junior high. They're all in state schools right now. They're all in good, colleges right now. I'm like, okay, let's do this. It's safer. It's better. I'm finding it's even, obviously I still pay your property taxes, which is what goes to the school district. But when you look into what is really available, as opposed to just like Keystone and other, programs, it's really affordable. I'm not paying hundreds of dollars per course. I'm paying like maybe 100. And, again, when in some of the cases with the math class and the day trading and the history, when I lived some of the topic, subject matter,
Yeah.
there's nobody better to teach him. Some of his guest lecturers are going to be Bill and Hillary Clinton. What's wrong with that? And maybe if you're a Republican, it's not the best idea, but I mean, still,
Yeah.
So I think it was an excellent decision, and like I said, he's doing very well, and it's going to be setting him up to do. He already knew because of his language deficiencies in foreign language that he's not going to go right away to like Florida State or Florida, because he doesn't have that as part of his transcript, but he can get that at a junior community college if he elects to. But I mean, I'm not going to use the language that he used, but you're probably, and your listeners are probably familiar with Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V. He was speaking at an event, and a mom there with her son gets up and says, "Would you send, your what is so the question was something about the quality of going to college after high school?" And Gary Vee was kind of opposed to it, and so he asks the mom, says, "Are you paying for it?" And the mom very proudly says, "Yes, I am." He turns and looks at the kid and says, "Effing go. Go party for 4 years because that's all it's going to be worth." I was in college 25, 30 years ago, and my history professor said that all a 4-year degree is going to get me is a right to flip burgers at McDonald's. That's a direct quote. I remember that for 25 years. And as a history major who wanted to be either a social studies teacher or a history professor, I already knew he was right. I knew that I was going to go for a master's and a doctorate, and he said for me, for what I wanted to get into, it would be a master's and at least one doctorate, probably 2. And then, I looked at the cost effectiveness of that and cost benefit ratio.
Yep.
And I'm like, really? And with what they make and for how long? And the other thing that really turned me against it was the job security. I had a French instructor at Penn State, without question, one of the best instructors I've ever had. He was, at least in the beginning, as an intro to it, at the beginning of the class, he was what's called totally submersive, meaning that when you walk in the door, all you speak is French.
Yep.
I mean, think about it. How did you learn English? Assuming English is your first language, how did you learn English? You didn't learn it in French.
Yeah, everyone around me learned new English. Yep.
Yeah. So, and it was I learned more about the language in that one semester than I did, the other 2 semesters at Penn State and the 2 or 3 years that I had it in high school. Mm-hmm. And then they fired him because he wasn't published. He wasn't getting the Penn State name out there then. But here we are 25 years later talking about, French Jim, who was actually the head of the department. And even then, with that juice, still got fired because he wasn't published.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to have to combat that. So I decided I was going to catch bullets for the next 20 years.
So as we start to wrap up here, there is one question I like to ask all the guests, and that is, what is one important lesson you've learned in life that you want to share with all the listeners? It's actually, I don't know if you've seen it, but go back to the Facebook group from Think Media for the 1,000 subscriber challenge. I'm the very first one that he pulled things from the aha moments, if you remember that. Yep. I did see the clip. Yeah.
And my aha moment was that I realized in that case, speaking specifically about running a YouTube channel, that I can do this. I can educate my son. I can day trade. I can teach others to day trade. My mic is blocked. I'm counting. I can teach others to day trade. There's you look at people like Elon Musk, Steve Jobs. I think also Steve Wozniak. Bill Gates, they all dropped out of college. because they were just so far different that college didn't fit.
Yep.
And my biggest lesson to everybody else is you can do this. There's somebody I want to go back and thank and say hello to. It's my junior high wrestling coach, a guy named Mark Fluharty. He kept pounding into us, you got to want it. You lost because you didn't want it. And I sucked at wrestling. I only did it in 8th and 9th grade, and then I went into ice hockey, stayed more aggressively into ice hockey. And that's why I am now one of the quotes in my series of celebrity, I'm not a celebrity, but, of celebrity quotes that I've collected.
Yeah.
It's actually a screensaver on my computer system here in the house. Steve Jobs is on there multiple times. Bill Clinton, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, Mark Cuban, Sean Cannell is going to be on it when I finish doing that. But I'm on there also. And the caption for my photo reads, minor league baseball umpire for 2 years, with aspirations and scouted by Major League Baseball. Olympic ice hockey referee, scouted by the NHL. Secret Service agent, 21 years, 4 months, and 2 weeks. And then my quote is that people used to tell me that my goals were ambitious. Now they say that about my past. I've already done it.
Yeah.
Having a YouTube channel, that's a normal job compared to the stuff I've done. And that's probably my biggest message to everybody else. Figure out, like we talked about in the class with Sean and company, figure out what your niche is, who your audience is, or what you are providing or what you want to do. Figure that out first. The whole, fake it till you make it, or just, it'll happen. No, it'll happen because you got up out of bed and made it happen. Figure that out and then make it happen. When you don't have a plan B, you got nothing to fall back on. I forget who the actual explorer was, but if you see the movie The Hunt for Red October, Sean Connery's line is about this explorer. When whichever one it was, reached the new world, he burned his ships because this is going to be our new home. Make whatever your goal is that new home and burn the ship and make it work. Wayne, another quote from my file is Wayne Gretzky. He says, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. Yep. And continuing along that same mindset, the reason why he succeeded was because a good hockey player goes to where the puck is it goes to where the puck is. A great hockey player goes to where the puck is going to be. Burn your ship and then figure out where that puck is going to be. And let that be the reason why you're going to succeed.
So powerful. I appreciate that, Yergz. I really do.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you taking the time to join us on the Life Edge podcast. For anyone that's interested in connecting with Yergz, I'll put links in the show notes below to his YouTube channel and social media accounts. If you want to give a quick shout out to what it is that you're Instagram, Facebook,
anywhere
YouTube.
you want to be at Doggy Traders. And I think the week that we were in that class together, YouTube also launched the
handles.
Yeah. I thought that was kind of what was already on YouTube.com/whatever, but yeah, even that is at Doggy Traders.
Awesome.
So anywhere you want to be on the internet, including soon, it's not up yet, but there will soon be a website, doggytraders.com. But until then, anywhere you want to be at Doggy Traders, and you can find us there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Yergz, for taking the time to join me today.
My pleasure.
I hope you have a great week.
Yep, you too, Chris. Thank you.